The Trump administration imposing a total economic embargo against the government of Venezuela, intensifying the campaign to remove Nicolas Maduro from office. The action places Venezuela on par with other countries such as North Korea, Iran, Syria, and Cuba, the only other countries under such aggressive U.S. measures. National Security Advisor John Bolton speaking out on the move earlier today. Take a listen.
We have to see Maduro moved out of power. I think the regime's isolation is increasing. I think the people of Venezuela need this regime to be removed and the legitimate National Assembly government to take power and hold new elections.
Joining us now, James Carafano from the Heritage Foundation. James, is this a much-needed move, and will it be effective?
You know, I kind of feel like when they said they were going to make a new Star Wars movie, and I said, oh, this is awesome. And then the movie came out and said, I wish they hadn't done that. So it's a good idea in principle, but I think there's some downside. You know, if the government does change when we move to me engage, I think it'll make more difficult to jumpstart the economy. I think there's a potential that it could exacerbate the humanitarian situation. And because it's a unilateral U.S. sanction, it could jeopardize the international consensus we've built against that. And for the other side is it does put more pressure on, but that's not the pressure that's going to remove the regime. So I'm not sure they've tweaked it exactly right.
Well, it's always very hard, isn't it, to remove these rogue dictators who just manage to stay in them regardless, because they always find a way to get money and relief somewhere, you know, around the back there that keeps them in power. How can we know that these sanctions are actually being imposed, I guess, is the question.
Well, and I think you raise a good point. I mean, they do kind of have the get out of jail free card, which is they still have a relationship with Russia, right, Iran, China, and Cuba, and those are all regimes which some of them are themselves heavily sanctioned, and they find ways to move enough around, because if you think about it, in the end, all you have to do is have enough resources to pay off the people you need to keep control. And that's not an enormous amount, you know, a vast amount of money. So it's unlikely that the sanctions themselves will ever force these guys out for power. The key thing is, what will, I think, is the international pressure and building that international consensus. And in some ways, I think the administration, you know, put the cart in front of the horse, because, you know, they're focusing on the sanctions. What we really need to be focusing on is the international cooperation to continue to isolate and pressure the regime.
Trouble is, Russia and China are not on board. The usual suspects kind of define themselves on each side of the line, and meanwhile, Maduro carries on. There was a real effort to have Juan Guaido get in earlier this year. That failed. I mean, how long can this guy hang on?
Well, I mean, let's look at the happy side of this. The happy side of this is this administration has demonstrated continued resilience and discipline. They've stuck on this issue, and that's good for them.
Right.
It's a real problem. The other thing is, you know, a lot of us thought Guaido would have had to fled the country or been shot, and he's in the country still, and he's still leading that resistance.
Good point.
So, you know, the game's still being played, and I'd rather go into extra innings, because we're fighting for freedom and the future of the country and the region. So I'd rather go that than, you know, call it a day, take my ball and go home.
James Carafano, as always, James, thank you very much.
Yeah, great perspective. That was
yeah.
interesting.
Thanks.